comics are stupid.
No Harry Potter movie is good.
And you're like, give me the Snyder Cut. Oh, sorry, just walk in front of you here. Gonna put my popcorn down. Oh, sorry, gotta put this here.
Universal needs to sue Sony.
Hey, I'm an idiot. I was fired from Fox. Let me go.
I'd like actually to see Venom just crush Spider-Man.
Hello everyone, we're back today and we have a special guest this time. It's not just us talking about things, we have someone to talk to, which is great. We're joined by like a legend in Canadian film, nominated for a Canadian, what are they called? The Guild Awards? Canadian Screen Awards? That's what they're called. And made one of the best Canadian films I've ever seen, honestly. And he did it.
Oh wow! Well, that's kind. Thank you.
By himself too. He was everything. He was the director, the writer. It was insane. So we're joined today by Taylor Olson. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, and that's very kind of you to say. That may be overly kind. I appreciate it.
So, you're obviously going to be kicking off our new series on Canadians in film, and so let's start by talking a little bit about your upbringing in Canada. So, just to kind of get some, just allow people to have a little bit of knowledge on kind of your upbringing. You tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how you got into film.
Yeah. So I grew up in BC. We sort of moved around a lot when I was a kid. My dad worked in the logging industry. So kind of makes sense with bone cage and everything. And then I came out to Chipuktuk and Mi'kma'ki here, Halifax, Nova Scotia, to study theater. And so I took an undergrad in classical theater training, like Shakespeare and that sort of thing, here at Dalhousie University. And then when I came out of school, I started acting in films. John Dunsworth, actually, who used to play Mr. Leahy on the Trailer Park Boys, got me my first couple auditions. And then from there, I just started acting in film. And then when I wouldn't have work and I was bored, and I started writing films for myself, short films. And then I started acting in those. And then eventually some of those short films got made. And I realized that I did have a very specific vision for how I saw those films when I was writing them. I didn't realize that by imagining what the shots looked like or how the edit would go, or the style, that was actually me sort of directing in my head. And so some folks told me that that's exactly what directing is and that I should give it a shot. And then I started directing my own films from there. So it actually started with acting and then writing to be an actor. And then eventually, because of the writing, having a specific vision, I ended up directing. Yeah.
That's awesome. So just to kind of, stay a little bit on brand with the channel kind of identity as well. Do you like superheroes?
Oh yeah. Yeah, big time.
Who's your favorite superhero?
I don't know. I'm pretty impartial to Spider-Man because when I was a little kid, like little kid, Tobey was my Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. And so that was like the first superhero movie I ever saw, was the first Spider-Man in theaters. So I gotta say
your Spider-Man? Is he still your Spider-Man?
Oh, I think so. But I think I also think Tom Holland's pretty. I think that Tobey Maguire is my Spider-Man, but I do personally think that Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man.
See, without even knowing it, you just managed to make sure that you didn't annoy either of us. So that's like.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Obviously, Alon, who's your favorite Spider-Man?
I'm a Tobey guy. Like
Yeah.
you, Taylor. I'm a Tobey guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously a Tom guy, so it works. You're
There
nice
you
in
go.
the middle.
Funny.
So Alon, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, for sure. Next question would be is what with regards to Bone Cage, by the way, Bone Cage was excellent, really. What was it that attracted you to adapting that play into a motion picture?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I read the play when I was in university, actually, and I loved it right away because my my dad and my grandfather and lots of folks in my family worked in the logging industry for generations, different positions, but on my dad's side, his dad ran a wood processor, a lot like Jamie in the film. And so I kind of loved the play right away. And I really liked Jamie because he was interesting. He was kind of this hard case, this kind of like, tough guy exterior, but was actually this really sensitive person underneath. And I kind of liked the duality of that, the character paradox there. And then in 2017, I actually was lucky enough to do the stage version of it. I acted as Jamie in a production here in Chapuktuk, and it was the second day of rehearsal that I immediately was like, I think this could make a film, because I'd seen the images, I'd seen the clear cuts, I'd seen my grandfather and my dad working in the logging industry, I'd seen the devastation of a clear cut, what that looked like, and Catherine's writing is really poetic and beautiful. But because I'd seen it, I kind of wanted to see those pieces or smell the wood or, that sort of thing. And so it was really early on that I started thinking about that. We finished the run, and the director of the play told me that, a lot of people have asked Catherine to adapt it before. So I was going into the meeting with her to ask her, thinking there's no way she'll say yes. But I think my understanding of the characters and just my upbringing, and then how much I understood Jamie, the character, she luckily took a leap of faith and just said, yeah, sure, kid, go ahead and make it. She was kind enough to let me go do it with sort of a leap of faith there. Yeah.
So now, just to kind of follow up on that, is there so now your second film, if I'm correct, is a play you wrote yourself, and you've gone from adapting a playwright, right, to adapting your own play. So now, what was the kind of what was the decision, I guess, because I'm sure it was a big decision to say, going from something established to going to something you wrote. What was that kind of decision like, and what was the process, I guess?
It's funny. I think projects just sort of appear at the right time to you, Bone Cage, I would have never thought about adapting it until I was in the play. So that was sort of, there's some serendipity to that. This, when I was writing the play, the play is a solo show. So it's just me telling my own story. And so even in the middle of it, I thought, there was something that I had to do in the play where the character loses weight over this long period of time. And I attached physical weights to my body. And over the course of the play, as the character would lose the weight, I would take them off. So I started with, 90 pounds of weight on my body strapped to me. And then slowly I would take them off. And I did have this feeling of I couldn't do that transformation again, but what could I do on screen that would be interesting? And what would that look like? And so the decision to make a film about this was sort of, it was almost intuitive, because it was like the film idea almost came at the same time as the play. I had both ideas at the same time. I just didn't know how to do the film yet, to actually show someone losing weight over a long period of time or changing physically. So it was less about working with someone who's already like an established playwright, and then me, who's a novice writer at the time, and more about just these projects felt right in the moment, honestly. Yeah.
And so just kind of follow up quickly on that, and we will get back to talking about your new movie. Don't worry, we're going to drill into that too. But we just to talk about the process of financing a movie, for example, right? So how much do things like, for example, what critics say and stuff like that affect how you're able to, and how are you able to actually get the financing for these kind of movies, and just kind of go through that process?
Yeah, so Bone Cage we financed through the Telefilm's Talent to Watch program, like their micro budget program. And so I made a number of short films before that, which was sort of how I was able to get the funding through that. And so the way that works is you apply to an industry partner, whether it's, you're a university grad and you apply through your university, or there's a film co-op. So here there's the Atlantic Filmmakers Co-op, and that's who I applied through. And then they choose amongst, however many projects apply, maybe 10, maybe in bigger places, probably 20, 30, to each group. And then they nominate those to Telefilm. And then Telefilm makes a smaller selection of those. So if Telefilm gets, 100 nominations across the country, then they'll choose, whatever year. Last year it was probably 18 or something like that. It's a lot smaller now. And so that's how we got that film funded. But moving forward for second feature, third feature, whatever we're trying to get funded, definitely, a big part of being funded in the Canadian sort of landscape. You kind of have to go through Telefilm usually, right? For at least 49% of the financing or this and that, and they definitely have a rubric about looking at your past work and how it's done. So a big piece of that is like what film festivals you played at, what selections you got at which film festivals. They've got a list of film festivals that they have sort of approved as film festivals that are worthy enough to compete. And then same with, if you win any awards at those festivals and what critics say. So that's a big part of it. But thankfully now, although that is a big part of it, the success of the previous film, Telefilm's moving towards a juried system. And so this means that the creative of that specific project is actually the most important thing now. So, it gives us a little bit more room as filmmakers to, I think, experiment, to take risks and come back. If maybe you take a risk and that project doesn't go too well, you can come back with the next project and what most is the creative of that specific project. So I think we're moving towards a place that's a little bit more kind to Canadian filmmakers and where we can take a bit more risk and experiment a bit more, which is nice.
So Lon, you want to go ask a question?
Yeah. Going back to Bone Cage, so you held 3 major roles in it. You were the director and one of the stars. So I wanted to know, how was the reaction of your peers regarding that, and how did you manage to handle 3 major parts of a film set? Considering the magnitude of them, how would you manage that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I was really, really lucky and blessed on this film to have a lot of people surrounding me who are a lot smarter than I am. My DOP is really, really great. Kevin Fraser's amazing. My producer, Melanie Wood, she's incredible, and knows how to like put the right things in place. My editor, I'd never worked with at this point, but we worked together for the first time in this movie, and we just clicked, and he's a really experienced editor. So I was lucky enough to be surrounded by folks who have experience and are a bit smarter than me, so I could kind of lean on them in the right moments. And in terms of acting and directing at the same time, that's how I started directing. Really, my first films as short films, I was already acting in them. So that was the way that I was most actually comfortable working with a director at that point. And I'd had the experience of trying different things and failing in my short films, so that I could come to the feature a bit more prepared and have a better idea of what I was doing. And some people think you're crazy for doing it. And people are like, "Why? There's no way that's going to go so badly. Like, how are you ever going to be able to choose a take? Are you going to look at it as the actor or the director, or like, how are you going to communicate with the other actors? How are you going to know what you're looking at on screen?" And really, the answer to all of those questions that I got before we went to shoot was a lot of prep. Like, Kev and I were really on the same page. We knew exactly what we wanted to look like. We had everything planned out as much as we could, to the point where we could improvise on the day and let it flow a bit more. But it really came down to prepping both separately as a director, as an actor, and knowing that those things would come together in the end. And there's something nice about directing and acting at the same time, because you as an actor are able to influence the other actors. You're able to set the tone. You're able to, they also know that you're in the trenches with them. So if you're asking them to do a really intense scene where it's, it might hurt a little bit, emotionally. I mean, not physically, but it might hurt a little bit emotionally, and that you're going to have to go somewhere that, you're going with them too. Like, like you're not going to do anything that, you're not going to ask them to do anything that you're not going to do yourself. So there was a bit of like, sort of like a film camp sort of vibe to the way that we were making this movie. It was like a lot of friends who bought into a vision, who came together and were above all going to take care of each other. It's like people first, then product. And because we kind of had that mentality of like, let's be kind and generous to each other and take care of one another, then we became like a mini family. And that way we could kind of go to these places and try things that were a little bit harder. And when we failed, we'd be like, all right, we got each other's backs. Let's just try it again. And so all of those things together made my job a lot easier. And truthfully, at the end of the day, like me having done the adaptation, I knew the script so well. Therefore, directing it, I knew the script so well therefore acting, I knew the script so well. Like all of those things actually came together cohesively, where I'd never really felt during the shoot that one was fighting with the other. They all actually kind of just came together and were like a nice little pairing for me, which was great.
So kind of build on that in a sense. What was there ever a point where like, because like I imagine this is like, you know, Inside Out, like, you know, the different emotions, right? And like there's a writer part of you, the director part of you, and like the star actor part of you, right? Was there ever a point where like two of those kind of were fighting each other, and you were like, I know I should cut this, but then as the actor, it's like, I like this so much, it's such a good scene. And how did you deal with that?
You know what? Thankfully, I didn't really have that fight too much, because you know, going into it, one of the things that I knew that could be a problem. Like I knew that might be a thing that came up, and so I wrote down sort of like a little mantra or like manifesto for myself of these rules that I was going to follow. And one of them was that whatever's best for the movie is what happens. So if whatever's best for the movie in that moment is that I take a take where I'm not as good, but the other actor's better, then that's the take that goes in the movie. And you kind of have to remove yourself from the equation. It's a lot easier to do that when you really care about a story. And so for me, I really cared about the story. I really cared about Jamie, and I really cared about all these characters, and also really cared about trying to fulfill, you know, the original vision that Catherine had, like the heart of what the play was. And so I think if you're really passionate about the story in that circumstance, you think about yourself less. And so it's always about like best idea wins, what serves the story the most. If my take is better in this take, but it's worse for the movie, we're using the other take. And so that's kind of the bit of the rule set that I followed there.
That's actually that's interesting. I'm surprised because like I would have completely expected you have like a story about this scene that you just like were like, I need this, and half of you was like, I need this, and the other half was like, you can't do this. See, it's good that you're able to kind of order your emotions so that you didn't have to deal with like that internal conflict. That could have been a movie by itself. I'm telling you.
Well, you try, right? You do your best. You do your best. In fact, I think it's harder. I mean, you know, when you're making films, I'm sure you can attest to this. It's harder to actually cut other people's performances than your own, because you're like, oh, I feel so bad. Yeah, I feel so bad. And you know, it's yeah, but it's easy to like, you know, get your head wrapped up in it and your ego wrapped up in it. I know that I worked through some of those problems that you're talking about in the short films when I made them. So thankfully, by the time I got to the feature, I was like, oh, I've made the mistake of keeping a take that I was better in, but was worse for the movie before. So I know not to do that now. So I got to make those mistakes a bit more during the short films. Not that I didn't make them in the feature. I definitely made a million mistakes during this, but yeah.
So that actually is a perfect segue to my next question, which is what mistakes, or what are the biggest mistakes you made in the feature that you were like not gonna make in your new movie because you now know you're a professional, you're an expert, like, you know, what are those mistakes?
No. I feel like the more I learn, the more unsure I am. I'm sure everyone feels that way. But some of the mistakes I made, there's so many, but one of the main ones is we had this very specific way that we were shooting the film, as you saw, like that we were shooting a lot of oneers. We wanted to feel really immersive, and so we felt that holding tension by not cutting was the answer, by staying inside the scene and sort of living in the moment with the characters. Partially that's a carryover from the live theater, wanting to just feel immersed in it, and partially that was one of the rule sets that we created to also be able to get our days in a weird way, because we're shooting this movie in 15 days, right? It's like so fast. And so, but one of the things that I didn't do that I would do in the future is actually, in the future, I would shoot more coverage, even if I didn't think I was going to use it. So in this film, like, you know, we were like, oh, this is the shot, this is the oneer, we choreographed it, we'd plan it out in pre-production, we'd get there, we rehearse it on the day, we got it, it's great, I'm happy with it on the day. And I'm not saying that necessarily there's many places where I would have been like, oh, I would want to see this or that, but just having it, just so that if you ever were in the edit and you go, oh, I wish we could just do this, but we don't actually have any footage because we didn't shoot it. That was one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And so on this feature, you know, I'm just in post on my second feature now. We shot more stuff than we needed. We shot stuff that, like, here's the plan. The way that I tend to work is I like to know the edit beforehand. Like if I can lay down at night and I can see the whole film from start to finish, the imaginary version, then I'm ready to shoot it. And if I'm not able to do that, then I'm not ready to shoot. And I even write an edit script beforehand. Like I'll write a whole script that's just, we cut from this to this on this line, and on this line we cut to this, and this is what we're seeing. And so it's kind of like storyboarding, but like a bit less sophisticated. But on this film, you know, even with that plan, I would go, okay, well, what if we wanted this? If we have time, let's just shoot it. And that was the biggest lesson I learned, was just like, just shoot it anyways. Even if you're not going to use it, just get it. Yeah.
You just want every possible scenario, so you could just. I'm sure that this will cause more internal conflicts when you have just so much footage that you have to decide. You can't make it a 7-hour movie, right? So, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a balance there. Exactly. It's like, we might want this or this. Let's just get this alt really quickly. Like, there's definitely a balance, though. Yeah.
So, let's kind of do a little bit of a rapid fire thing where we're going to ask you questions about yourself a little bit more. Okay.
Okay.
So, Lon, do you want to start with this one, and then?
Yeah, sure. So rapid fire. Let's see. What's your favorite all-time book? And it can't be a play, so like no
Shakespeare. No Shakespeare.
Favorite book of all time. Oh my God, what is it called? I think it's something like Redwood. It's my favorite, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's about this little mouse who's a knight. And I read it when I was like in grade 4, and I loved it. But second, I one that I can actually name is definitely the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I love those books so much. Yeah.
And I'll give you a little bit of like an ability to answer a question that I know you didn't want to go to. What's your favorite Shakespeare play?
The Tempest. Yeah, I love The Tempest. Yeah.
Okay, I want to dig into this a little bit more.
Okay, The Tempest. Why? What I love about that play, I love it for both the characters. The characters are amazing in that play, and I love the magical element that there's like that magic exists in this world. I really love that. And also, one of the speeches near the end is beautiful because you can tell that it's like Shakespeare saying goodbye himself. And that little passage always got me, where I was like, oh, wow. And I'm not like a big Shakespeare guy, but that one really gets me. Yeah.
I mean, I got like a little bit. Tempest has a little bit of a weird spot in my heart because I only read Shakespeare when I have to for school. So that was one of the few Shakespeare plays I read. Not a huge fan. I was much more a fan of my Star Wars rewrite of it, but you know. English part, so. Yeah.
I saw this version with Christopher Plummer from Stratford that I watched, and that's what made me love it so much, was because I watched, and it's probably because it was Christopher Plummer. He was unreal in it. Yeah.
I mean, I think just reading English class is just no.
No, I feel you. Yeah.
So, what's your all-time favorite movie? You kind of answered this, but
all-time favorite movie? Yeah. Well, it's tough because I just saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I can't put on this list yet because it's too early, I think. It just wouldn't be. I need time to process it. But right now, it's competing. Honestly, I think my favorite movie of all time is right now is 8th Grade. I love that movie so much. I'm obsessed with that movie. Yeah.
Is there a reason? I want to know, because I legitimately don't understand. Like, I don't know why people love it so much. So I want to hear this.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, for me, it captures this feeling that, like, I think I'm far enough removed from when I was in 8th grade that I can appreciate it. But that feeling of this like social anxiety and not being able to fit in, and one of the things that like Bo Burnham I think did so well is the movie is quite funny, but it makes you feel so uncomfortable the whole time. It almost like it makes you feel the way that you feel when you're like in 8th grade and you're socially awkward, and that was me at least. And then it also does this beautiful thing where it catches you unexpectedly in these dramatic moments where it just sort of it takes a turn, and it's so subtle, and there's that scene where she runs upstairs and slams the door and hides in a room. This movie that's been like quite funny throughout, all of a sudden just like I find that when something's really funny and then it hits you in the gut, it's like it hits you so much harder because you don't see it coming. And I think one of my favorite scenes in a movie, like ever is the scene in the backyard where she burns the like the coolest girl of all time sort of memento thing, and the dad has that speech about like why, you know, I've got, my daughter's 8, so I kind of relate to this idea, but like this idea of like how special she is and how special she'd be even if it wasn't his daughter. And so I kind of probably have a soft spot there for that as well. Yeah.
Well, I guess that makes. I feel like when you watch it when you're in like 10th grade, like when I was.
Oh yeah.
At the time, I just don't think that it just has the same effect. I'm sure if I went back
No.
and 5 years down the line, watch it, then it'll be all good.
I'd say watch it again in 10 years. I don't think I could have watched it if I was in 10th grade. I probably would have been like, this is so cringy. This is the worst thing. Is that how you felt? It was just like, wow, this is so cringy.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. That's really fair. Yeah. I think I had just the right amount of years removed that I was able to look at it a little bit further away from it. Yeah.
So Alon, do you want to ask?
Yeah. Is there anything in particular you're watching right now? Any film or TV show or any book that you're reading that you would recommend? And what do you think of what you're watching or reading?
I've been rewatching a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson's films. He's my favorite filmmaker, and so like when I say 8th grade, it's like that's like my favorite, but it's not like the movie that I think is like the best ever. I think his movies most of them are just pretty fantastic. So I've been rewatching those, and I think like even if they're not someone's cup of tea, I can understand why his movies wouldn't be someone's cup of tea. They're like perfectly my cup of tea, but I totally get why they wouldn't be someone's. It's just to watch them anyways for the mastery and like blocking and like why he's shooting what at what moments and why he's seeing this and that, and like I just think like in terms of like blocking, like putting the camera in a certain place, moving it a certain way, and moving the characters, it's pretty like incredible no matter what film you're watching of his. Yeah.
Okay, so a quick two-parter. Okay, it's a two-part question here. They're kind of like two separate questions, but I'm going to put them together because it's going to work, okay? So now kind of going to your filmmaking brain, right? If you had unlimited money, you had any actor in the history of Hollywood, actually let's say current Hollywood, would be willing to star in this movie, and you can make it about anything. What would the genre be, and who would the 2 actors you'd kind of be featuring, I guess, in the movie be? And the second question is, what is a project that kind of currently exists that you would love to just remake, basically?
Oh, like one that's already in the world?
So for the first part, answer the first part, then we'll cover the second part.
Okay. Also go back and say that in terms of like my favorite filmmakers, Andrea Arnold is one of my favorite filmmakers. I think she's unreal. She's like, I could watch her movies forever. So American Honey would be up there too for me, actually. That's also one that's controversial. I get why people don't like it. In terms of what project, this is a really good question. So, okay. I've got this project that I'm actually working on right now. I'm writing with a friend. And it's another play adaptation, actually, since I seem to be obsessed with that. And it's sort of about like, it's questioning the idea of like pursuing greatness in art, and like, what is greatness in art, and what does that mean? And like, if you're pursuing greatness in art, are you actually pursuing greatness like in your life and with your community? And like, does that include being kind and generous and all these sort of things? Does that include being courageous and inclusive in that way? And so I would love to, with an unlimited amount of money, make the version of that movie that has like a crazy amount of money. And I would want actually to pull Daniel Day-Lewis out of retirement and have him act in it as one of the actors. And then the other actor that I would love to have in it would be Viola Davis, because I think she's crazy good. I think she's just unbelievable. So I think those would be the 2 actors that I would pull out and yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis out of retirement, make another movie.
Wait, so this movie doesn't feel like something that a lot of money would be very useful for, except for like paying the stars. Are you gonna bring in Michael Bay to
Oh
say,
no,
spend some money
So-
here?
well, that's funny. There's a version of this movie, I won't say too much about it, but like a part of this film would take place on like a film set. And so there's two different ways that we can make the film set. One's like the crazy low budget version where it's like, like this big actor comes to act on this super low budget movie in like rural Mi'kma'ki in Nova Scotia. Or there's the other version of that movie where it's like this, where I have unlimited resources and the actual like film set that like, a good half of this movie takes place on is massive. And it's like, like huge, and like the production value of the film that the movie's filming, is actually just like massive and crazy. Like that would be like, it'd be so cool to play with like the meta aspect of that, where like the movie that you're filming that's being made is just like way bigger than the movie that's making it. I just think that'd be really, really fun. And you could do like tons of stunts and things in it, and you could do it on a soundstage, and it'd be crazy. Yeah, I think.
And then you could follow that up with doing like a Quentin Tarantino and just making the version of that thing that you created fictionally in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
Movie set, you can make a real movie.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas the movie that they're filming in this version that we're writing right now is like super tiny, right? It's like a $1 million movie that the star who's like, like to sort of like falling apart. I'd say like watch Canadian filmmakers like Corey Bowles, or like like Brett Hannum's recent feature Wildhood is amazing. There's so many amazing films that just came out even this year, like Scarborough and Night Raiders, like all Puny Sorrows. Like those are great films. I'd say like watch Canadian films like that. Like just get a Crave subscription and watch them, because a bunch of them are there. And then when you go to make your own films, don't try to make films for other people. Make the film that you want to see, and don't be afraid to be personal and tell your own story, or tell stories that matter to you, and be specific about that, because the more specific you are, the more vulnerable and honest and personal you are with your storytelling, the more that will, I think, translate to other people. And don't be afraid of what other people will think of the film, or how it's going to be received. I think don't worry about that, and just sort of make the movie you want to make, thrill yourself, and take risks, experiment. Like, Ethan Hawke has a great quote about failure, where he talks about how, like, every great thing was this close to failure because they tried something new, they took a risk, and that it's okay to fail, because that's where we learn. Like, don't be afraid of like making a movie and maybe it sucks, and that's okay. Actually, maybe that's even better than it just being mediocre. Like, take a risk and maybe it sucks, and guess what? Maybe take a risk and the next one's awesome, and that's cool too. Like, it's okay to fail, I would say. Yeah.
That Ethan Hawke quote was really good, by the way. I've never heard of that actually.
Yeah, he's got a lot of great stuff that he says. There's another thing that I really love that he said about art, how art is actually sustenance. Like, sometimes we take it for granted, and that, like, we can spend our days not thinking about it, or thinking that it's not important, or it's not as important as other things. But when we are heartbroken, what do we turn to? We turn to art to help put meaning into the world. We to help understand ourselves and our experience. Or when maybe it's not a sad thing, maybe it's a beautiful thing, where we fell in love with someone and it's like, wow, has anyone ever felt this way before? That's when art sustains us, and that's when art like keeps our spirit alive and helps us understand our existence. And so, I love a lot of things he has to say.
So, looking more a bit into your personal life, you mentioned that you went to Dalhousie in Halifax. So, I just wanted to know, what was your university experience like at a drama program? Since my co-host and I were currently university students, we wanted to know, what was your experience like in post-secondary education?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine my experience is a little bit different, just being two different mediums. But I learned I think these programs are really important because they help give you a foundation to start with, and hopefully you'll meet a lot of great teachers and mentors there that will like guide you throughout the beginning of your filmmaking process or theater process, like it was for me. Like, there's so many foundational things I learned about acting, about technique, about storytelling. But the things I learned the most were the simple things, like, about why what we make matters. Like, why does, we're not saving lives, so how are we changing them is the question, with stories. And then, I think, like my experience, I wanted to learn outside of what I was just being taught in university. So I started reading everything and everywhere. And I think, the biggest piece of advice I can give to anyone in any institution is that, is don't just follow one guru. Take all the pieces of the things that work for you and experiment and try different things out until you sort of find your own voice. There's that saying of, like, you have to sort of imitate a bunch of other people before you find your own voice. And I think that's okay. Like, don't be afraid to do that. My experience was really like that, where I was sort of imitating for a while, trying to find out who I was as an actor, until eventually I was able to sort of breathe and reflect on myself. And I think that's probably a big part of our university experiences, is reflecting on ourselves, getting to know ourselves, and therefore then knowing what matters to us and what stories we can tell, what our values are.
All right. He's coming back.
There we go. I swear to God, technology is so annoying. Technology, today, of course, of all days, today decides just to mess me up. Anyways, thank you. So we're not gonna keep any more of your time. Post-production will be so much fun for this. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, not at all. Thanks for having me. It was really great to talk to you guys. Yeah.
You're gonna be the kickoff of, like, this series of Canadians in film. Like, it's.
That's so cool. I can't believe you've even seen my movie. Never mind, asked me. I was like, what? What? Like, they watched the movie and they're like, I was amazed. I was like, this is so cool for me. Like, and that you guys actually
cool
like
for
it.
us when you said yes. I'm not even kidding. When you said yes, I called Alon and I was like, oh my God, he actually said yes.
What? Well, I'm flattered, and I really appreciate that you guys dig the movie. That's really cool. Yeah.
And hopefully, when people listen to this, they'll kind of get inspired, and we'll get more Canadian, because that's what it's all about, right? Canadians, there's so many great Canadians in film. We need more. Come on, we need as many Canadians as possible. Like,
general audiences don't realize how many great Canadian movies come out a year, right? Like, and it's like sometimes it's like the tiniest movies are like so good. I don't know if you guys ever saw Black Cop, by Corey Bowles. Have you seen that movie?
I've heard of it. I've not seen it.
Oh, if you get a chance, check it out. It's on CBC Gem, so it's pretty accessible. But, like, I mean, that's another talent to watch micro budget movie that my buddy Corey, who he was on Trailer Park Boys for years, played Corey on the trailer, it's on. But he's like, I agree. There's just so many great filmmakers in Canada that, like, just their movies don't get seen. Yeah.
So, thank you so much for coming and making the time to come. And I know it was a little bit chaotic, and I swear this will just get better.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. So appreciate you, and assuming everything goes well, and when I'm trying to edit with this mixture of, like, whatever, the people should be able to follow you on Twitter, and I highly suggest you do, because we're listening to a filmmaking legend in Canada. So I
That's really, really kind. Feels totally untrue. I'm just getting started. I'm just like an emerging little baby filmmaker, but I appreciate that.
When you're winning your Oscar, you got to remember to thank us. Yeah, but we appreciate you for coming on, and more of these to come every week, every Monday. This will be out on Monday. Everyone will be watching something.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Who's up next? Can I ask?
Assuming everything goes according to plan, which in life, I think just nothing goes according to plan.
Yeah.
It is a VFX artist by the name of Nathaniel LaRouche.
That's awesome. That's dope. Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's great.
We've got a whole bunch of weeks, and still got more emails of people who are like, kind of in, kind of out. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we can do this. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, no, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And let's keep in touch, and I'd love to see your films as you make them, if you're willing to share.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share your thoughts. Follow us on social media. Follow Taylor on social media. And tune in next Monday for the next episode of this awesome new series.